Everybody. Well, we will go ahead and get started this morning, and we'll, as folks join in, and we'll catch them up on what's going on. But so thank you guys so much for joining us today. This is our Royal Legal investor show for multi-unit commercial type investors. And so, this is one of our newer shows, and we're really excited about it to give you guys a place to network and brainstorm with folks who are in your same specific type of investing field. So inside of that, we're always glad to have you guys. I know we've got some familiar faces showing up today. The topic that we're going to be talking today about is the Series Llc and how specifically it can be used by the multi-unit commercial type investor. So if you joined us on one of the earlier shows this week for a different investor profile, some of this may be duplicate information, but we want to make sure we tailor this one and let you know exactly how to use that for your particular investing in multi-units today. So, let's hop off. If you've been involved with these calls before, the typical format. So what we'll do is we'll start right now with just kind of general introductions. We'll go into breakout groups here shortly for about 10 minutes. And inside those breakout groups, the purpose is for us to be able to network with people, identify things that, we might give you some help on, kind of do general introductions. And so inside of that, we're going to have 7 questions that we'll post here in a moment that are really conversation prompts. So we'll do those 10-minute breakout groups. Once we come back from that, we'll briefly debrief what came out of those groups for us. Then we'll move into the presentation about the Series Llc for today. We'll go back into breakout groups after that to debrief what came out of that presentation for you, identify any knowledge gaps or things we can apply to our own business structures. And then we'll come back for Q&A and wrap it up for the day. So let's go ahead and hop into breakout groups. The things that we're going to be looking for that I think are good discussion prompts are going to be things like, what is your name, location? What do you invest in typically? What are things that you could benefit from? What are some challenges you're having? Is there anybody or anything you have identified that you could be useful to your business? What are some things that are working well? And then the last one we've had is, what is your superpower? Now, folks have taken this a couple of different ways. It can be, what is your business superpower? What's your personal superpower? Really just want to use this time to connect with each other. And so inside of that, once you get in your breakout group, if you guys will identify a spokesperson, because when we do come back, we're going to have a brief debrief, like I said. And so your spokesperson will give a 1 to 2 minute overview of any common themes that came out of that breakout group. So it's not going to be a complete recap of what everyone said, but more so just showing what identifies and connects us as these multi-unit commercial type investors. So Ken has gone ahead and posted those 7 prompts in the chat. Feel free to use the chat throughout the call today, guys. It's a great way to not only keep questions top of mind for you so we can see them and answer when the time becomes available, but it's also a great way to drop your contact information if you want to connect with others. So Ken, if we can, let's go ahead and hop in those breakout groups and we'll get it going.
All right, one moment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, welcome back, guys. So if you are one of the spokesperson for your group, if you will use the reaction button down on the bottom bar of the Zoom field, hit that reaction button, we'll get you called on and we'll see what came out of those breakout groups. All right, we got a quiet group today. That's okay. Yeah, Zahid, go ahead.
Sorry, I was getting off the mute. Yeah, so we had a group with Robert and Soka. Oh, sorry, Gilbert and Soka.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gilbert started first, and he was talking about the situation he's running into right now. He has a property in Texas, and he's trying to do a build out to more units and whatnot, and he's running into the construction loan issues and stuff like that. That's what he's going through right now. And Soka's talking about her residential portfolios that she has in California. She lives in California, and she's looking forward to these meetings to get more information and whatnot. And this is my first time in this, in this group meeting setting. And for me, it's had a property in Kentucky, commercial property. A little bit of issues there. A tenant went out during COVID. Had to get another tenant, remodel it, and get a tenant in there remotely from California. And I was finally just got a tenant in January. And now I'm refinancing one of my residential properties. I have a couple residentials. Refinancing one, I'm looking to buy a multifamily in Ohio, but I'm running into right now. I need to partner up with somebody in that's over there to get boots on the ground and whatnot. And that's basically where we're at.
Well, thanks for sharing, Zahid. Yeah, sounds like one of the common things coming out of it is people are dealing with a lot of lending stuff right now, which I definitely think is probably it's going to be one of the major focuses, particularly of this multi-unit commercial type group, because that's something that I think can be one of the bigger hangups, as opposed to if you're working with more of the residential side of things. So thanks for sharing. Anybody else? All right. Yeah, Charlie, go ahead.
Good morning, Megan. Yeah, I was hoping one of our other team members, we didn't get a chance to designate who was going to speak this morning, but I thought I'd pop in real fast and support. So we have a couple of guys in our group. One of them is Brendan, and the other is Joel. Brendan, we're familiar with each other, and it's over the last few times that we've connected. But I know Brendan, you can always step in and correct me if you're wrong, but if I'm wrong here. But he's in California, and I know that he's been working on investing in some additional projects, single family, as well as I think looking into some other additional commercial projects. But he's looking at investing into and expanding out to the Florida region. So lately he's been working on developing projects there, moving into picking up more doors in Florida. And as far as his superpower, Brandon's got a lot of superpowers.
That's true. That is very true. I can speak to that one.
Yeah. But I think organizationally, from what I can tell, and this is just from your perspective, he's excellent with details. So, I think that's one of his greatest superpowers is his organizational skill sets. So they're getting some good expansion ability on what's going well, and as far as the challenges, I think kind of like many of us, we're experiencing all the things that coming off of COVID, and dealing with both, how to mitigate the issues of dealing with the restrictions, the moratoriums and stuff, and as far as evictions and tenancy and all that, on how to handle that, because it depends on what municipality you're in, but they're not all the same. And
right.
So, that's one of the biggest challenges is it's not a consistent thing across the board. So he's experiencing that. And I think several of us are experiencing that as well. And then as far as who he attracts, or he's looking to attract, I think, I can't speak for him exactly, but I would say that I know that we were talking about attracting more partners, strategic partners, to try to develop projects in different regions.
Mm-hmm.
If we get to diversify the portfolio or expand our portfolio, into other areas. For Joel, Joel is from Austin, Texas, and he actually retired from his W-2 job a couple of years back. His background is in engineering, and he's actually investing in syndication. He's a big syndicator in projects. Has about 1,100 plus doors that he's has developed, and he's continuing to develop. He's got a couple projects going on. One I know for sure is he's building a new 250 unit project, multifamily, as well as he's also working in mixed use. And his superpower, what goes well for him is he actually specializes in, as far as his portion of developing in any developing partnership, in actually closing the deals. So he works on the front end financing package to get all that done and put together. And then he's a connector. So he finds the partners to help fill in the gaps to work on the rest of the project to get it completed. And as far as so was going well for him, you know, he's got he looks for guys who could find deals. Again, like the rest of us, finding additional capital and lenders, and then also guys who are good at asset management. As far as let's see, as far as what he's looking to attract him, I think again, looking for additional good partners to network with, who have good skill sets, especially in the commercial arena, because once you find good, you know, guys to develop as far as strategic partnerships in that arena, you kind of want to stick with them, and particularly in regional areas. So he's got a pretty good portfolio on commercial development projects, and including multifamily and mixed use. So that's kind of that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Charlie. I always appreciate your willingness to hop in, and you know, and I can speak to you. You're right. Brendan's got a bunch of superpowers. You, Charlie, have a bunch of superpowers, and then Joel absolutely is a connector. And so, kind of related to that, Joel dropped his contact information in the chat there, guys. So make sure you take a look at that. That's something for you to utilize if you want to connect with him. See if he's got anything involved in you want to join in on. But so yeah, thanks for sharing. I'll give it another 10-15 seconds. If anybody else wants to share, go ahead and throw that reaction button up for us. Excuse me. All right, so I was going to walk through the Series Llc presentation today, but I think majority of the folks on the call today are existing clients, and some of you are the ones that have been with me in the earlier shows this week. So some of this is going to be a good bit, I say some and then a good bit. A lot of it will be material you've already heard. So I'm going to kind of go through this presentation pretty quickly. And I will pause on certain slides and leave them up so we can ask questions about it. But I think the pivot for today actually is going to be, instead of focusing on walking through this presentation as much, let's make it more of a general Q&A type thing. And we'll just walk through any issues you're coming up with as multi-unit investors, identify any areas or topics we want to dive in deep into in the coming weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Like I said, we're going to walk through this pretty quickly, but as we're going through, be thinking of any pain point areas, any topics you want to learn more about, anything we can tackle today, and then also make sure we're going to bring relevant content for you guys specifically in the future. I'd love to hear them as we get these shows going. So give me just a minute. Let me share my screen. All right, guys, give me a thumbs up if you can see that, please. Solid. Thank you. All right, so we got the Series Llc, and this is specifically geared towards multi-unit commercial folks with assets and residency outside of California. So if you live in California or you invest primarily in California, the series is not going to be the best fit for you. We're going to look into something more like the DST for you. So if that is you, let me know. We've got other groups geared towards that, and also can connect with you one-on-one about the best strategies for it. So background about me, for those of you who are new, my name is Megan Templeton. I am a consulting attorney here at Royal Legal. I've been working with Royal Legal for, I think, about 3.5, 4 years now. And I've been doing real estate, small business, entrepreneur law for much longer. So really enjoy this area. Have personal investments in short-term rentals, long-term rentals. I do a lot of notes and syndication type work. And then I've also gotten into the microloan for minorities and small businesses owned by women as well. Royal Legal, what we are is we are your one-stop shop. So we operate in all 50 states. We've been doing this for about 9 years, and we've protected over $2 billion in assets. So got a lot of experience in this, learned a lot along the way, and want to be able to provide you with the most tailored information we can for your circumstances, because we've seen a lot of things at this point, so we know how to work around them. So hopefully we can do that for you. I'm going to kind of just breeze through this one because this is kind of the same pitch you guys would have heard on the other ones. But so risk factors that come into it when you're an investor, things that can lead to a lawsuit, going to be keeping properties in your personal name, relying solely on insurance, not having your assets compartmentalized. So if they're grouped all together in one liability bucket, not having anonymity. So if your name is all over the public records, people can easily identify what you own, possibly what your value is like an inference about that. And then, the personal exposure through lawsuits through that, just having it in your personal name. So when it's in your personal name, not only are your business assets at risk, anything attached to you personally is, so it impacts your family as well. And then the last one we like to add is that if you've got a bunch of LLCs and a bunch of bank accounts and things like that, your operations are going to be pretty messy. It's going to be hard to keep up with. The more you have to keep up with, the more bandwidth you have to give to that mentally, the more opportunity there is for error, which can lead to the downfall of your structure because the courts can pierce that. So we want to streamline, making it easy and as mentally as minimal as we can for you. So in this one, we talk about how insurance is the last resort. Essentially, name of the game for insurance providers is they don't want to pay out. They want to keep that money in their pocket, right? They collect your premium and they're looking to not pass those out as much as they can. So I wouldn't want someone whose their main goal is to keep money in their pocket to be in control of my setup and my whole structure. So insurance is a great first line of defense, but it's definitely not something you want to rely solely on, which is where we come in to give you that liability structure set up behind it. Lawsuits are going to happen. I think the stats, if you are an investor for 20 plus years, there's like a 92% chance you're going to be sued at some point. So it's not necessarily if you're going to be sued, it's when. And what is that lawsuit going to look like? Is the person bringing that lawsuit being completely truthful about what occurred? Or they understand the complexities of what occurred? Essentially, what are you going to be facing? What's someone going to say about you and your business when they get there that could potentially strip you of your assets? So as Scott likes to say, rich people, they don't own things and they don't pay taxes. And you may be looking at me and saying, Megan, that is completely contrary to what I've heard about the American dream. I want to have the big mansion. I want to make sure that I'm showing my wealth off. But that's going to be a downfall. Ultimately, rich people are the ones who have those assets, control them, and can pass them on, but they don't look like they own them from a public perspective. The more public you are about what you own, the higher risk you are for litigation. Additionally, you want to minimize your tax burden so you can keep those funds in your pocket. So this is where the Series LLC comes into play. It's scalable. We can create as many of these child Series LLCs underneath it as we need to as you continue to grow your portfolio. You can benefit from streamlined operations with things like one bank account, one bookkeeping records, one tax filing. Makes it a lot easier. There's only a one-time maintenance and set up, and then the yearly fees are really minimal. You've only got it for that one parent entity. And you can also form it in any state and use it in any state. So as far as the setup, where can I form the Series LLC? There's a couple different states. We typically do ours inside of Texas. Excuse me. And so the question we get a lot is, well, I don't live in Texas and I don't even necessarily invest in Texas. Can I use this for somewhere else? And you absolutely can. So per the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution, you can set it up in one state and utilize it elsewhere. And so that's why we end up setting a lot of our stuff up inside of Texas, because the fees are minimal and the charging order protections are strong. So we recommend doing it in Texas. It's going to hold up. There hasn't been a lot of challenges to it. There's only been one that I'm aware of, and it was successful and holding the Series LLC up. So it's not something we are concerned this structure won't hold up if it ever is challenged. And what we like to tell people, if you work with Royal Legal inside of this, if for some reason it ever is challenged, we'll come alongside you and help you defend that. So when's the right time to get a Series LLC? If you're an investor who is completely new in the game, you don't have any assets yet, you've got no business activities, you're not looking to build or repair credit, then you may not need any type of LLC structure yet. You're still in that planning phase. If you've got just maybe one asset, but you're not sure what your growth plan is yet, you can most likely get away with using just a simple traditional LLC because you only got that one asset. You can put it into one LLC and it's still protected. Now, if you are an investor who has multiple properties, or you are on a growth phase and you know exactly how many you're going to be adding and how quickly that's going to happen, we recommend getting the structure right on the front end. And that is a structure that is scalable. And so we highly recommend the Series LLC for that, because you can put one asset per child series, grow it as quickly as you want without a lot of filing, a lot of fees that come into it. And it's just a great way to minimize your liability, separate out your assets. So what does a Series LLC look like? And I'm actually going to pause on this one so you guys can ask any questions about it. But you'll see over here on the notes, you can form it in Delaware, Nevada, Texas, Wyoming, like we talked about. And the important pieces in that, again, is the charging order protection. So if you don't know what that charging order protection is, essentially that's what says, if you are sued, can someone come against your ownership interest in an LLC? Well, if they can attach to your ownership interest in the LLC, they've attached to all of your assets in that LLC, right? So we want to make sure that where we're forming these LLCs, both the charging order is protected not only by statutory language, but also court precedent that's held it up. And so we really like Texas for it. And then you'll see over here on the left, or excuse me, the right-hand side, this is what the Series LLC looks like from a diagram perspective. So up here on the top, you've got your parent Series LLC. That's an entity that is being formed with the Secretary of State that you're paying that filing fee for. And inside of that filing form, it's going to delineate out exactly how the LLC is going to operate as a series, which is that you're going to have the ability to add these child series underneath of it, as many as you want in perpetuity. Now, underneath of it, you'll see that second layer, those are those child series. So you've got A, B, C, like we said, that can go on for as long as you want to. And you may be asking, well, how do I set up those child series? So I've got the filing for the parent series. I pay the filing fee. I do the form. What about these child series? Those are internal documents. So those are things you're going to need a child series document, which just kind of formalizes it up, has all the components of who the member is, when it was formed, who the parent is for that child series. You have an operating agreement, just like any other LLC, that tells you exactly how that LLC can operate and act. And then underneath of it is where you put the assets. So the Series LLC, you can hold a multitude of assets in it. You've got investment properties, syndication, cash stocks, people put vehicles in them, things like that. But this is where you're going to start putting your assets into it. And we do recommend one asset per child series because you want to minimize that liability. So by compartmentalizing one asset per child series, if someone sues this child series A and it's got property A in it, but you also have child series B that has property B in it, if they sue A, they cannot come after B. So you're going to really save yourself a lot of headache and a cost savings if you ever do get litigated, because your entire portfolio and business activities are not at risk. So I'm going to pause here and see, do you guys have any questions on this portion of it? All right, making it easy, friends. Well, let's skip ahead a little bit. So this is just kind of another overview. And I think the important piece to point out on this slide is the differentiator on this is on this right-hand side, you'll see at the top next to the parent Series LLC, we've got the anonymous trust listed. So what that anonymous trust is going to do is it's going to ensure your information is not on the public filing with the Secretary of State. So if someone were to Google and look up your LLC, trying to figure out, who owns this LLC, because I know this property is owned by this LLC. Well, who owns that? They're not gonna be able to find your information. It's going to be fully anonymous. It's going to say a trust name. And the only way to figure out any information about that trust is to have the trust document. But that trust document is not publicly recorded. It's internally held. So they're not going to be able to get to you that way. So you've created and you've maintained your anonymity by using that trust. Things about the series also, you're going to have attorney-client privilege, streamlined business operations, and then it's infinitely scalable as well. Paying taxes is super easy on these things. If you're single or if you're married in community property state, then it's a disregarded entity, goes on your typical filing return. You'll put your business activities on C and E depending on if they're active versus passive. Unmarried or partners are just going to issue a K-1, which I think is most people are familiar with from typical partnership type deals. And then these diagrams kind of give you a little bit of an overview of what that actually looks like as far as paying the taxes and how the income flows. So you've got the rental fees coming in. Those rental fees are going to come into either your property manager, your traditional LLC, however you're collecting those fees. Those are going to be distributed to your Series LLC. From that Series LLC, it can distribute income to you personally as the owner. And so you'll take that out as an owner distribution, and then the taxes come at the back end of that. Frequently asked questions, essentially, do I need a specialized CPA or bookkeeping for any of this? No, they should be able to pick it up and run with it. These are easy structures to use. Do recommend a specialized CPA for things like real estate professional designations or certain deductions you can take. But as far as if they can file the returns for the Series LLC, absolutely. Any CPA should be able to pick it up and run with it. And then here at the end, this is kind of our full protection plan, just to give you guys an overview of what it looks like to ensure you've got protection and wealth planning at every stage. So you've got things like the estate plan, which is going to include living trust, the pour over will, your healthcare directives, power of attorneys, things like that. That's going to ensure that everything you're working for today is going to go to who you want it to go to in the future and how you want it to do so. If you are someone who's got a large net worth, we're talking 20 million plus, and you want to talk about some really tax advantageous ways to handle those funds, offshore trusts are a great way to talk about it, and our team can walk you through those. We also recommend retirement vehicles for things like saving on those funds. So you've got things like the solo 401k, the self-directed IRA. We've got some plans going in the works with RLS to roll out things like mega backdoor Roths. And so there's a lot of ways to make sure you're going to keep more of that money in your pocket and preserve it for when you hit that retirement age. And then here at the end, we just got some reviews that we've left in there. So what will happen with the slideshow is after the presentation, we will send it out. So you can take a look at all of these, review them more in depth. And then here at the end, it's also got a quiz. If you want to fill that out, it goes directly to our team and asks some questions about what specifically are you involved in? What are your needs? And that lets us tailor our information to you, connect you with the best advisor for your circumstances. So we can make sure that the information you're getting is not going to overwhelm you and it's all going to be relevant to what you're looking for. So that's all I had as far as presentation goes. So let's do this. I think for the multi-unit commercial investor, the biggest issues I hear come up with are things like lending. But I want to hear from you guys. What are some things that you would like answered today or would want some deep dives on later on? So if you can either drop them in the chat, that's a great way to do it, or hit the reaction button and let's just kind of get an open forum Q&A going.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what kind of effort or overhead is associated with creating a new child?
So it's it's a pretty easy process. So if you let us know you need a new child, you're going to be getting a new property or anything like that, then what our team will do is draft the documents. And like I said, for those child series documents, you don't have to pay a filing fee or anything. They're not publicly recorded like the parent series is. So we'll draft that child series document that lays out the formation paperwork of it, but that is not publicly filed. So that information is privately held. And then we have that operating agreement, and those can vary on complexity and length, depending on if you have outside partners and things like that. But as far as just forming those up, it's going to be the two documents. And then if you do have a property, and Joe, you'll know this, we use the land trust in conjunction with it. And that can get a little more complicated based on the jurisdiction of the property. But child series in and of itself, minimal cost to get it started and minimal paperwork and complexity. And then maintaining it, you set it up, it just runs. Nothing to think about on your end. Hey, Gilbert. Yeah. What about you?
Okay. Our structure has two companies, right? The operating company and the Series Llc. And since we're a partnership, well, then I'm doing two tax returns, right? One for both companies. If we have a child, is that going to be structured as a partnership too, or is it going to be single member with the Series Llc owning it?
That's a great question. So your series, and this may be more information you want to share in a group setting. So let me just walk through it from a high level overview. If all of your partners in that child series are also partners in the parent, so you do not have any outside folks in that child series, it all flows through to the parent series return. So that parent series issues the K1s and you're good to go. Now, if you have partners included in the child series who are not members of that parent series, then that is a separate tax filing. That gets a little bit more complicated. But most of the time, what we see 90% of the time is anybody who's in the parent series, they're going to be the only ones in the child. And so it streamlines everything for you.
Okay. All right. So if it's all the same owners, then we don't need a separate checking account or a separate EIN. But if we do have a partner, somebody outside the original group, then we would just run it like a separate company, get another EIN and another checkbook for that one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we actually don't even get EINs for individual child series unless there is an outside partner. Everything operates under that parent series EIN and can operate under that bank account. But you hit the nail on the head that if there's an outside person, you want to treat it like a new LLC altogether. Yeah. All right, Ray, what about you?
Hi, good morning, Megan. I just have a quick question. How about if we, so I have a partnership and we are transferring our properties this year. So we had no net, although we opened our partnership last year, we had no income ours because we didn't transfer. Do we need to file as a zero?
So most of your CPAs are going to recommend the filing of the zero return, just so that the IRS has no type of ambiguity on it. Now, I would say check with your individual CPA on that, because I've had some folks handle it differently. I know personally that a zero return has been filed when I've had that happen in the past.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Megan.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got any other questions?
Can you touch briefly on why this structure isn't appropriate for California people?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are in California, so either a resident in California or primarily the majority of your investing assets are in California. California has something called the franchise tax, which all states do, but that varies on what that franchise tax amount is and what the triggers are for it state by state. California is particularly high maintenance when it comes to franchise tax. If you have any type of entity in California that is an LLC, corporation, S Corp, anything like that, you're going to be charged an $800 franchise tax per entity. Now, so if you had the Series Llc and you had the parent series, and let's say you had 4 child series underneath of it, you're going to have to pay that franchise tax 5 times. So you're looking, at a pretty hefty tax bill every year. Now, an exempt entity inside of California is a trust. The trusts do not have to comply with that franchise tax rule. And there's something called the Delaware Statutory Trust, which it operates like the Series Llc in the fact that you can have the parent trust filed and formed with the state, and then you can create as many of these individual trusts underneath of it as you want, but you're not going to have to pay that franchise tax on any of them. So over the long haul, most people within 2 to 3 years are seeing significant savings by using this trust structure as opposed to the series. So if you're someone who has an LLC already set up in California, I would recommend let's go ahead and talk about maybe transitioning it so you can take hold of those savings and moving forward. Or if you were just setting it up initially, let's connect with our team and talk about, is the DST right for you right now? But yeah, so kind of in short, Joel, the best way to describe it is you're going to avoid the franchise tax, which is a $800 fee per entity in California per year. But if you use something called the DST, and there's a couple other type of trusts now coming out that you can use that'll avoid that.
So let me invert that scenario. You guys set up a DST for me back when I was a California resident.
Mm-hmm.
I've since moved to Texas. Is there any reason for me to switch things over and start using the child series LLC instead?
No, so the DST can operate nationwide as well. And so the reason we don't recommend the DST right off the bat for folks who are not California residents is the setup fees can be a little bit higher for the DST. It's a little bit more complex for us to form. But if you have already got it set up, you've already paid those setup fees, it is up and running. Continue to operate it, use nationwide. There's no need to transition to a series. They operate the same, and you wouldn't want to pay the setup cost again.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We've got one in the chat. It says, Brendan, what's the main difference in operations between the Series Llc and the DST? Operationally, they look the same. Really, the DST and the Series Llc operate very, very similar in that you've got the child series. You can do the one bank account, one bookkeeping records, things like that. Now, the DST does have some 1031 components to it where you have to structure things a little bit differently if you're going to do 1031s and that type of thing. But I don't have that information from me today. We are going to have a DST specific show. I believe that's scheduled for next week. But so be on the lookout for that. But as far as day-to-day operations, the Series Llc and DST are going to operate the same. Right. And speaking of talking about next week's shows and things like that, Ken did just drop the February content calendar into the chat. And that content calendar is not only going to be for this show, it's going to be for all of the shows that we do. So right now we have 7 shows a week, and those are going to be covering different investor personas, different topics. So we've got a tax show, a royal life, which is more of a general how to streamline not only your business operations, but how to live a life at a higher degree of excellence and streamlined as well. So check out that, see what shows interest you, highly recommend it. And then Ken, if we can also just drop the links to the shows, fantastic. You are on top of it, my friend. Those are the links if you want to register for those. You can add them to your calendar. You'll get reminder emails, that kind of thing. Any other questions though about what it looks like to be a multi-unit commercial type investor I can answer for you today?
Yeah, I had a question. How does it affect financing? If I've not ventured into the commercial arena yet, but I'd like to sometime this year and pick up a multi property. How getting financing? Like,
yeah, that's a great question. So, and financing is one of the things I think kind of needs to be a bigger focus with multi-unit. So when you're going into financing with multi-units, you're getting those commercial loans, you're working with these various lenders on it. There's a couple of things, rates are obviously going to be different. The application process is a little bit different. Where it comes into play with your liability protection structure is for residential loans, single family homes, things like that, you can purchase a property in your own name to get a lower rate and then move it over to your structure post closing. There's an exception that allows you to do that without triggering the due on sale clause. When you're investing in multi-unit or commercial units, that exception does not apply anymore. So it's imperative that you get the titling to that asset correct on the front end when you purchase it initially. So inside of that, what we tell folks is when you identify your lender, you've got the property, you're going to work with this lender on it, loop our team in or whoever you're working with, or if you're trying to tackle it individually, let them know this is I've got this property. I know this is a commercial loan. Are there any exceptions inside of your lending company that I can move this over post-closing because there's not any statutory exceptions? Or do you have any specific titling requirements I need to comply with now? And a lot of time what that's going to look like is they're going to want you to close into an LLC and leave it in that LLC. So then the next question would be, what type of LLC can it be? Can I use a Series Llc for this? Or does it have to be a traditional LLC? Can I use a land trust at the bottom of an LLC to give you anonymity as well? So there's just a lot of considerations and a lot of more conversation has to go into it with the lender. But kind of the foundational piece you want to understand when doing financing on these is that once you set that financing up and the titling is done initially, most of the time it's very difficult to change that post-closing without a new financing event. There's, like I said, there's just not an exception to it like there is if you're dealing with single family homes. Does that make sense? Any questions, follow-up questions on that? I know that was I just threw a whole lot of information at you. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a lot for someone like me, but that's orbit and I got quite a bit of it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, as you think through that, any other follow-up questions or anything I can dissect for you, let me know. I'm happy to do it. All right, let's see, Charlie, we got a question in here. Does it matter what structure is best if you're investing in projects overseas, but still on US federal land? Fantastic question, and one I am not fully equipped to answer today. So historically, my understanding of that is going to be, it depends on exactly where you are overseas. Now, that's not something Royal gets into a whole lot, but we do have networking attorneys that deal exclusively with overseas investing, including on federal land overseas. So we can connect you with the right folks to answer that. I am not that person, but great question.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah. All right, guys. Any other questions for today? All right. So we've got about 9 minutes here left and we don't have to use all that time, obviously, but I do kind of want to hear from you guys. Like I said, this is the first show we have done geared towards multi-unit commercial investing. And it is going to be a weekly show. It'll be this time on Wednesdays every week. And I want to make sure we are tailoring this content to things that are going to be really useful, high impact for you instead of, just trying to throw something out there for engagement. So what we've currently got scheduled are things like doing these product deep dives. So like today would have been the series, like I think next week is the DST and then the week following is estate planning. But so we've got, about a month worth of product type things. And then after that, the plan was to transition into things like having guest speakers who excel in this space, having partners, third parties like lending operations come in and talk, insurance agents come in and talk, and really making sure this information is geared towards you specifically. But are there any topics or things that are top of mind for you guys that you're like, Megan, this is what I want to hear about. This is what is most critical for me? I'm gonna take that silence as we hit it spot on 100% the first time, and I love that. That's great confidence boost on that one. All right, well, something to consider, guys, something to be thinking about. We always want your feedback on how to make these shows better for you. So if you come up with anything, shoot me an email, let me know. Definitely want to get it in the content calendar. A couple other things I wanted to flag. We're also starting Discord channels. I don't know if you guys ever use them. It's my first getting into. I know Brendan said all the cool kids are using them, so I'm hoping this is elevating me to cool kid status now. But so essentially, there chat channels where we can keep these conversations going on with like-minded investors outside of these meetings. And so, Ken, if you'll drop the Discord channels, if those are ready, I'm not quite sure if they are. Fantastic. Ken is on it today. So you can log into those, keep the conversations going. We've also got staff. They're going to be inside of those monitoring them as well. So if you have questions come up that you want our team to address, it's a good place to do it as well. I know I've got them on my phone. I've got it set up for alerts, so I'll try to snag them as they come in. But so, yeah, just want to make sure you guys have got all the opportunities to stay engaged, because we do have these 7 shows a week now. We're not going to be sending out these daily recap emails after these meetings specifically. It's going to be grouped into one on Fridays, but we do have, email content going out through the week. It just won't be these recap anymore, because we do not want to absolutely blow up your email. But things that come up during the week, let us know. Make sure you're subscribing to the Discord channels, signing up for the shows that are relevant to you. We've also got the Wistia channel up, which Ken just posted a link to, and that's where you can always pull down these recordings. So if you find a meeting that is particularly useful for you, or you think someone else could benefit from them, feel free to share that link to them. And then my email is also in the chat. So if you got any questions that come out of that, feel free to shoot me an email. I can either answer it personally or connect you with a member on our team who is going to be the best fit for you. But I think that's pretty much it for today. So like I said, if you guys have any feedback, let us know. We'd love to hear it. But if there aren't any other questions, then we'll go ahead and call this for today. And then we've got Royal Investing coming up in an hour. If you are someone who is interested in investing in carbon credits, we have got a guy today. His name is Ron Galloway, yes, who will be talking about carbon credits. And he is an extremely interesting guy. I highly recommend tuning in today if you've got time or watching a recording, because every time I talk to Ron, I've got things to think about for like a week and a half. So check that one out. Like I said, coming up in about an hour and 5 minutes, and then we should be good to go. All right, guys, before we close it out, any last minute thoughts?
Megan, I got a quick question. This is Charlie.
Yeah.
So regarding the DST and the Series LLC, has anybody, or have you folks ever come across, because I know Joe was asking about, if the difference, if you have the trust, the DST set up before, and then does it make sense to switch over to a Series LLC? But have you folks ever done it in combination? Because if you have a portfolio that's so diversified, is there an application, or have you folks come across experiencing a client having both the DST and the Series LLC structures?
Yeah, absolutely. And where I see that happen most often, if it's a client who is not based in California, doesn't primarily invest in California, but then picks up a partner, and that partner is California, and they want to have this new setup to work with this partner on. So it definitely can be done. I mean, there is a use case to have both setups. It is not typical, but you can do it. It doesn't complicate your operations. You just run them like separate structures altogether. But yeah, if that's something you think you need, then definitely, hit us up and we can talk through the specifics if it's a good fit for you, or if we can keep it down to one structure.
Yeah, because I know I'm working with you guys on our new completely new structure for our operations. I'm actually retooling after many years in business, but that was one of that specific model, that specific application is exactly what I'm going through right now. So that was the reason why I was asking about that. So I know that Scott, and Stephen guys are working on it. And I think we're working from the estate trust side to actually look at all the pieces to determine what's the best setup for as we go forward. But I fit into that particular model that you're talking about.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks for flagging that, Charlie. Yeah, that's a great use case for it. And as you go through that process, Charlie, any questions that come up, if your advisors, need any help on it, just loop me in. Happy to help. But yeah, it sounds like for what you're doing, that the dual type structure is going to be the best call for you.
Yeah, especially if we're doing like syndications or we're doing projects, collaborative projects, which I'm looking for, to partner with in different areas. But I've done projects overseas. And that was one of the things, that was the reason why I asked about that question. I mean, I asked that question about the what structures would be best for that, because there is a specific application for that.
Charlie, my man, you always got so much interesting stuff going on. I just want to like come sit in your office for a little bit and figure out your business plan. All right, guys. Well, I am going to call it. I'm going to hop in, but please, like I said, if you're interested in carbon credits, join us in an hour. And if not, hopefully I'll see you back in this show next week. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.